Okay, so I got my kit, finally came in for the speaker rebuild. Let's have a look, see what came in the box here. Looks pretty good. So there's our new coils, spiders, recone and paper. It's gonna look pretty cool. See what else we got in here. We got some instructions. The instruction kit. Looks like we got our gasket material on the bottom there. There's our shims, dust caps, glue kit. Awesome. Looks like I'm going to be rebuilding some speakers today, boys. One thing I do notice is instead of blue paper, it's black paper now, but it looks very similar in thickness and quality. Awesome. We'll be back. Alright, so here's the contents of the kit. 2 new spider coils, 2 new cones, with the surrounds already attached. Got our gasket materials on the top. Got our glue and our chemicals here to put everything together. Our dust caps, voice coils. It's always important just to hold this with 2 fingers instead of, we don't want to make the roundness be distorted at all. So we have our new lead wires to put in. Instruction kit there. And the other voice coil there. So yeah, what we got pretty much to make these old Cerwin Vegas dance again. And these are from a set of S1 bookshelf speakers that are pretty high-end speakers, really. That's why we're rebuilding them. Alright. The rebuilding Cerwin Vega S1 12-inch subwoofer. Time for a recone kit. First thing you want to do is cut off all this ugly silicone, which I've already pre-done on this one. So we'll lift that off. Get rid of all this foam, insulation, gasket material up in here. We'll clean that up real good. Make these speakers sound new again. So what we'd like to do, we'll take our scraper or utility knife, we'll scrape all around the edges here. We'll get that nice and clean. I'm going to leave all this intact. We'll leave the cone on there and the dome to keep the dirt out of the voice coil. I'll do that at the end, and I'll show you. We want to leave that intact so we know the height of the actual coil that's in there. So I'll pause the video for now. We'll come back when the ring is clean. Next step, we'll take our utility knife. We'll very carefully cut this dust cap off. So we're going to cut around this. See where down into the voice coil here, a little closer around. Try not to cut in underneath it too much. Just set this down here. Okay, so now we have the dust cap removed. You can see down into the voice coil and the magnet. It's very important we make a note of the height of the coil in here as relation to where it sits in the magnet, as the new voice coil will need to be set in the same position. You can see we have our lead wires coming up here through the paper here, which we'll remove that later. I think at this point now I will make some notes as to where that voice coil sits, and then I'll remove that. We'll cut around here on the spider. We'll remove that, and then we'll have to clean everything outside in here, make sure there's no dirt inside the gaps. That'll create quite a problem when these go back together. We've got the dust cap off of this one. I just want to show you. So I just wanted to get a little zoom in on how much this coil itself had been rubbing inside of the magnets. Although the outer windings, you know, you can see there's been dirt in there of some kind, who knows, right? But that would definitely cause some sound problems. So now we're gonna clean up in here a little bit, scrape the rest of this material off, and then we'll come back and show you about the voice coils on both speakers. I'm going to set up two at the same time and do the gluing at the same process. Okay, now we have the voice coil out, and what I'm going to do first off, I'm going to get some masking tape, and I'm going to tape up all around this gap here in the hole. Just make sure we get no more dirt in there while I peel off the rest of this old spider here in the glue. And we'll start with that. And another thing we can do while we're looking here is always double check these bolts, nuts. Make sure all three of them are good and tight. If they vibrate loose, it could create a vibrating issue on the speaker. So let's tape that up. Some strips of tape. Alright, so we got that taped up. Now we'll just take a razor blade, scrape the remaining piece of this spider material off in the glue. And then after all that's done, I'll clean all this out with my shop vac or compressed air. I'm going to use a shop vac. And we'll just make sure everything's tidied up. And then when the kit comes in, I can glue all the new pieces in. And then we'll come back and show you how that's done. Okay, so I've scraped off all the remaining glue and pieces of material from the original spider assembly. And I got a little sticky tape on a two-way card here, and I'm just going to get the tape in the gap here and just try and clean it all out against the outside gap of and the inside gap, and then I'll vacuum it all out and be ready for the new cone to go on. I'm just going to do a quick dry fit of the parts here to see how they fit around everything. So I have a coil in there, I got the spider around the coil, I'll put the cone around. Seems to fit pretty good actually. So that's going to go on there. This will go on there in the end, and voila! Brand new Cerwin Vega speakers. Want to make sure you got a bit of a gap around here where the cone meets the coil. It's going to be glued all in here, epoxied. And we want to make sure that it doesn't bind and everything kind of just fits freely. Might have to just sometimes you just have to open this hole up a teeny bit. So we'll test all that and see how it goes. Okay, so now we have the baskets all clean. We have our voice coil and the shim installed to about the height where it's going to need to sit down in here. And it is important that we try and keep the height as close to possible as the original voice coil, which to me actually looks a little bit beefier than the one the kit came with. And the new voice coil is a little bit higher, so it is important to make note of the actual windings that are above the pole piece here. So I think we're pretty close here. I have everything locked in place with our shim. And I'm just going to do a quick dry fit of everything and see how it all fits together. So now we have our spider assembly which slides over top. Let's slide that in place here. Oh, we're going to push that down. And it's a little bit tight, and I actually think I moved the coil a little bit there, so I'm going to have to recheck that. But let's just give a quick dry fit here for the camera to make sure everything's going to sit in place. So now we come over here, we have our cone and surround assembly. And we're going to just slide that over top of the shim and the coil. Push it down lightly in place. Just kind of see how everything's going to fit. It's a little bit tight. You want to have a little bit of a gap in here to go around our coil where we're going to put the adhesive in tight in here. Okay, but it's not too bad. So That looks good. And then obviously in the end we're going to have our cone go over here. That's going to seal it off in the middle. We'll have our little lead wires here and here. We'll have to poke some holes in the material down through here and here, where the solder of the lead wires go to the bottom of the basket on the back side here. Okay. All in all, it looks like everything fits pretty good, and we got our adhesive over here. We'll be using this white tube of adhesive, which is going to glue all in around here. We have 2-part epoxy to glue in and around here, and then we'll have this dust cap sealer. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to check a few things and we'll come back. Okay, we got all our voice coils in place. We're gonna time to glue in the spiders. Let's see how that sits on there. It's gonna be take our glue, and apply it to the spider landing here, right about where the old glue mark was. Nice little bead all the way around. Now let's apply this around the cone. One last check that everything's in the spot where I like it. Looks good. Slide this down in place. Slide her into the glue. Set her down. And give her a little wiggle there. Jeez, if I got enough glue in there or not. I'm missing. I'm really liking that. Smear it around a little bit there. Alright, seems to be a little tough to get that into her. Okay, try that again. There you go. Try to keep that evenly spaced around the cone form and the voice coil. Alright. This will take about an hour to set in roughly, so we'll do each one of these ones and then we'll come back and put the cones in place. Alright, like that. Okay, so it's been about an hour that we've let the glue set on the spider assemblies, and we're going to go ahead and epoxy the spider assembly to the actual cone, the coil form. So we got our two-part epoxy here. We'll make a bead around this little guy here and glue it in, and then we'll get ready to put the cones on top. Let's try to get a nice bead here. Alright, got a nice little bead around here. Soak in there. Alright, so spread in there, a nice little bead and around the voice spider to the cone form and all that. Alright, wipe the end of that off there. I'm just going to wipe up a teeny bit of the excess that so you got about 15 minutes to let that sucker dry in there. You're on to the next one. Make a nice little bead around this one. Here we go. Alright, so we're just going to smear this in there smoothly with the tip of the applicator. And we'll get that ready to go. Okay. And a little more there. Okay, so you got that on there. Oops, put a little bit there. I'm going to glue that to the form, that's for sure. Okay, so I'm just going to give that a second or so. That's good there. I like the looks of that. Teeny bit of glue on there I'm going to wipe up. Look nice. Okay, so all our epoxies in around the voice coil forms. We still have our shims in there while the glue dries. Okay, so it's been close to another hour. Hopefully most of the glue here is all good and dry. You can see we got pretty much a speaker here. I've taken the spacers out, and they move nice and free. They don't bind on anything, which is really good. We're ready to solder the wires to the leads and everything, and next step will be to put the gaskets and our dust caps on. Feels really good, that one. Same with this one. Awesome. Very awesome. Okay. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to solder up these leads and we'll come back when it's done. Okay, so get the old soldering iron going here. Trying to solder the leads in here. A little bit of solder action on here. Solder on the lead. Let's see if we got that on there. Touch more on there, make her good and tight. Okay. Oops. Move that a little bit. Let me do that. Moved it a little too soon there. Make sure we don't get a cold joint on the fucker. That looks better. Let that dry. Let's go to the next one. Put the lead down in there. Just using a tweezer here to kind of set up where I want to cut the lead to join it to the next lead. Okay, so let's finish up soldering this last one here. Do a nice penetration in the bottom there, make sure the leads are tight and ready to go. So there you have it, the finished speaker. All the glue is drying. Looks pretty new. And these things are going to rock again. Alright, so now we have the finished product here. I must say they do look pretty good. Although the original papers were blue, some of them were black. And they look pretty good. Now what we're going to do now here is do a bit of a sound test. Alright, so now we're going to do a quick sound test on these speakers using our tone generator. Make sure they're all working. Start off on the 55 Hertz. You might hear a small hum. Not sure how much this will pick up, but we'll go to the next one. Alright, so that one works. Go to the next one. Okay, so that one definitely works. With music.